Okay, so I want to talk about the pathway clearing up for the primary view that we've been talking about in this channel for quite some time now for Bitcoin and Mara stock. So now that this is clearing up a lot more, we're getting some really good indication of what we can be looking at as high probability. I'm going to share my own opinions on it. Um, as a way to, for me to share with you guys how I am approaching not just Bitcoin about how I'm looking at Mara and my own views on this. I'm gonna give you guys details on that, but just remember everything I'm gonna say in this video is just my own personal opinion. It's just what I'm doing. In no way am I telling anyone to copy. I recommend everyone do their own due diligence going forward. You are, of course, the one that makes the decisions on your own trades. But let's go ahead and get started. So in yesterday's video, if you guys watched that, you know that we've been keeping track of a whole lot of different retracement levels to confirm the uh, not just how likely, but how healthy this top was right here, where we maxed out our retracement resistance area. We pretty much maxed it out. We started coming down lower. We started showing signs that we're showing what could be a reasonable support at the bottom of the structure, but still inside the new yellow retracement for this overall move. The RSI never bottomed out, so I said, we can still see the price come down lower, but we need to keep an eye on as well, just because it was short-term support, a simple other retracement from this whole move down. As you can see, we maxed out the entire area, and then for the most part, the price couldn't sustain itself above that range, which tops out at 118.9K. So it started showing weakness, volume began to decrease, and then increased to the opposite side, just like we've been seeing so many times as these retracement areas begin to indicate so, right? So now we're just looking at a continuation. Now, what I'm going to do to update the alternative scenario, because of course, Bitcoin is still holding a support area. It can come all the way down to basically 116.5K. As you can see, we're still within that support area. And I mean, as it continues to come down lower, we'll see the RSI begin to increase the amount of space available to, go ahead and overexhaust itself to the downside. Now, this is like, in my opinion, bearish, at least short term, because as we continue to show lower prices are possible as the price continues to make these smaller swing lows, the RSI continues to allow it, allowing the price to come down lower without maximizing it. So there is still, in my opinion, a lot of evidence that we can be coming down and making one more low from this swing low down into this area. But things can change. I mean, we just had the FOMC meeting and rates are kept the same. There wasn't a whole lot of additional information afterwards. It was pretty much a quite a quiet FOMC meeting in my opinion. But that doesn't influence my views on Bitcoin. Then when I jump into Mara stock right after this, but yeah, it's still I'm still looking at this area. I mean, having this nice corrective move higher and holding within the resistance retracement area is very nice to see. It shows that there's still a lot of buying in the background. There's still a lot of bullish momentum still holding Bitcoin higher. I mean, if this wasn't the case, we could have seen the price continue to dip, and we can be much lower, potentially even going back to the 90s by now, in my opinion. But regardless of that, we can still see another small short-term pump. It's just fluctuations, short-term noise. We have a nice, value gap in the hourly candles right here. So it's still possible. And this is, again, coincidentally, they all tend to overlap perfectly with retracement areas. So it's just another area to look at. It's just a way to not get FOMO'd into anything. It's just a way to remain realistic on what we're looking at. So now what I can do is I moved it down a little bit because the price broke this swing low, but we're still holding support. So I'm still looking at this. The moment we break below 116.571K, then at that point, I'll be not, I'll be invalidating this area and not paying attention to it anymore. But as long as we're holding this area, it's still very much possible we can see bullish momentum pick up regardless of what the RSI says. But now, since we broke that swing low, regardless if we're holding support or not, from the swing high, which maxed out the retracement, we're just gonna look at how healthy this lower area down here is, at least as of right now, right? So it shows that if we were to continue down lower, we can still have the potential of holding a swing high, so a higher high from here, um, and just getting close to the red supportive area, 0.35 extension at 114.5K. It's it doesn't have to break into it, but we're going lower. We're holding support. We have a short term idea of where we can start looking at bullish momentum picking up, but we are holding a downtrend, a smaller picture downtrend within an overall downtrend. There's no reason to be hopeful or overly optimistic when the chart, at least to me, in my opinion, is telling me like, hey, it's not ready to start pumping up like crazy just yet. But that's why I've been accumulating early, and I have 40K invested in BitU. I really like to swing trade BitU, and I plan to add a lot more very soon this week. And I'll show you guys what the position looks like and the value of it once I add at least another 10,000 more to that swing trade. Again, if you guys are new to swing trade, is to take advantage of more fib levels eventually getting hit as we continue through this 2024 or 2025 bull market, end of bull market cycle, but we're still not finished. 128,000 is the next area I'm keeping an eye on. So this area is still possible. It's just on a turn scenario. I believe it's less likely than this red area, but we have a short-term resistance that I gave you guys a moment ago as to keep an eye on to see how, if the bulls are going to end up, early signs of the bulls are going to take over or not. And then we have the opportunity to hold still an overall higher low from here within this area. So it just shows a lot of things to be keeping an eye on, but there's still a lot of room to come down as the RSI continues to allow the price to come down lower without maximizing the RSI. It can very much easily open the pathway to this blue area. But the moment we break below 116.7 or 0.571K, I will be invalidating this area, because at that point, we can still have new fib extensions created, but that one is just it won't be reliable anymore. We can be looking at new ones, but I'll keep you guys updated on that. I'm not gonna go over it too much because again, my primary view is still coming down into this area down here. So, no FOMC or anything like that is influencing this. This is just me purely focused on, us seeing this swing low from here. It's super shallow. Of course, this overall swing high with all this bullishness, all this optimism, couldn't even break these two significant swing highs right here. So, there's no reason for me to be overly short term. And look at that, the price is coming down lower. So, it makes sense, right? It makes sense for the price to come down lower. Now we're gonna jump into Mara, and just remember too. I probably should have said this earlier, but the S&P is like very much over exhausted, and we can easily come down and revisit the 120 moving average to attempt to hold support at the 120 moving average once again. We've been seeing these really nice support hold at the 120 moving average. At any point it can easily break, and there's no significance, like there's so many different ways of looking at this uptrend, much higher prices. There's even bigger picture trends if you guys keep an eye on, pretty much over a year long fib extension. There's just so many ways of looking at it. There's also a lot of macro beliefs of rates eventually being cut, just because the Fed has to print more money, and it becomes a lot easier to do that if the rates are, and there's just so many ways of looking at this chart, but quite simply, if you remove FOMO hype and you just remove everything and look at it purely, it's like, you know, we haven't seen, and I mean, this is just a super simple way of looking at it. But if you follow, actually, no, we had a nice proper retracement right here, so I can't start it from there. We can start it from here though, and ever since this point, this swing low, we haven't seen an overall proper retracement fill. So it's very much possible that we can see, these decent aggressive short-term drop in the overall market, primarily the S&P. Eventually, it recovers, and it tends to recover pretty well, in my opinion. And in this case, I'm also expecting a pretty quick recovery. Um, there's just no reason to see a sustained dip in the overall market, at least not yet. But a dip is super realistic, in my opinion, and this can cause a lot of like broad market fear. The moment there's negative prices in the market, we start to see, you know, the VIX jump. We start to see the DXY doing its thing, and we start to see a lot of articles influencing fear. So then it's like there's just no reason to let yourself get overly influenced by macro, you know articles focus on macro, articles focus on fear, and then a lot of this fear ends up like potentially coming into Bitcoin and Mara, and we start to see like short-term weakness, uh primarily just due to emotions in the market, um due to a lot of outside influential third parties um doing their thing. And this is when usually I like to do the opposite and begin to buy. And as a lot, when a lot of this fear kicks in, and like we can start seeing, regardless of tariff negotiations picking up, and we start seeing positive articles on that, and there's gonna be a lot of articles overwhelming the investors and traders with fear of your rates staying longer for much longer than expected, staying higher for longer, and then something about potentially not seeing as many rate cuts, or even at all a rate cut this year. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I start seeing articles like that, coming up in the near future. It's all these brands have their agenda, and they like to push fear onto the market when they can, just like greed. It happens every time. So as Bitcoin begins to come down lower, again, we can still come down lower into support area, regardless of short term noise. There's more, you know, retracement areas to keep an eye on as the price fluctuates lower. We're looking for swing highs and swing lows to be broken, just to give us a better idea of what's going on. But again, regardless of the short term noise, until we have bullish confirmation, and that's consistent higher lows and higher highs in the short term, building up momentum. I'm still looking for lower prices. Again, I gave you guys the RSI example. I gave you guys the bigger picture retracement example. It's just, and how this low is very shallow. It's just too early to be, aggressively buying longs. But I will, throughout this week, be adding to that BitU position, because again, even if we do come down into these discounted prices, I believe it will not be sustained for long. I believe we can easily come out of it, and go up higher. And a lot of the times we see these increased volume structures happen during closed market hours. So I would rather be early, let the price do its thing, recover, and the amount of volume in Bitcoin and in BitU will pretty much cover BitU's depreciating element for these leveraged ETFs, right? And I said this last year, I said this many times this year, and I still believe that. Um, but yeah, no, I think the future is still bright. It's just short term. Short term just makes sense that we come down a bit lower. Now let's talk about Mara, and just remember, guys, like trading. Every time you trade, it doesn't matter how much other people are trading with. Like, you should always trade based on your own risk management and how much you are okay with, risking, especially in these crazy environments where interest rates and tariffs, and a lot of this is all big players in the game, right? So right now, the 40K in BitU, I don't care if I lose it all. That's why I'm so calm with accumulating a leverage position early. And every dollar I trade with, I absolutely don't care if I lose. It's not something that influences me in any way. So just keep that in mind, as we all want to take advantage of good setups, in my opinion. So let's talk about Mara. We continue to hold. We actually continue to hold the orange supportive area quite well. But we're obviously we're making these lower lows and lower high structures in the short term. The RSI is showing pretty good deal, but if we pay attention, and I mean, if the S&P falls and Bitcoin goes up, it can still influence Mara to come down. Just because Bitcoin goes up, Mara doesn't have to go up. But in my opinion, and I've said this many times this year, um, I mean, pretty much keeping track of the stock the same way I did in 2024. I'm looking for bigger picture retracements as short term deep value buying opportunities. Right. So I did the same thing here. It worked out. We went up higher. I mean, I was paying attention to the imbalance area right here. Um, it never got filled. We came down, and I kept telling everyone that, well, at least in my own opinion, and I could be wrong, but we just have a lot of reasons, and I gave a ton of reasons during that time on videos, um, that I'm looking at this supportive area, simple retracement. Ended up holding. We went up higher. We hit that TP area for taking profit. And then at that point, I was just looking at another overall retracement to accumulate once again. We never hit the 0.5, even though the RSI was to the bottom side. When we went up higher, same thing. I mean, well, the RSI was starting to max out a lot sooner than would make sense. So I wasn't surprised that we ended up seeing a lower high than here, allowing the price to come down, break the 0.5, or at least hitting it before going up higher. And then we can be looking at something very similar here. It can be a third test of this ascending support line, just like right here where we have nice three tests to allow traders to do the thing before the price reverses. So at this point, overall retracement area, good buying opportunity as long as your time horizon fits the risk management. Because again, we can be in this area for quite a while. We can extend all the way down to $14.30. We can do a whole lot of things within this range. But the idea is that this is a short-term devalue buying opportunity, with the idea of the next take profit area being within here. So between $20 and $24. Although, realistically, just right now, as we're still waiting for macro conditions to become easier to understand, it's much more realistic to have like 2150 to 2250 as a good TP, and not expect this area to be maxed out like the previous blue TP extension area was maxed out. It's a little bit different this time around, right? Macro stuff is super influential in this stock and many other stocks and markets, but that's why I'm trying to keep it a little bit more conservative. So you can even say 21 to 22 if you want to be more safe on it. But that's just my opinion. So yeah, it's as simple as that. Pretty much, we still have the opportunity because Bitcoin is still showing like short-term like strength within this support area, even though it's starting to drop. I mean, you know, it's still holding quite well. We're not seeing dramatic sell-offs or anything like that. So I don't think it's super likely, just because we did briefly break below the 0.618 16.56 support. Even though we're holding above it, we did break below it briefly. There is a lot of short-term selling momentum happening in this stock right now. It's still very much possible. I mean, we don't have to hit this area, but it's possible we can still have a short-term bullish pump. It's not something I would be too worried about like trying to capture, just because it's super speculative at the moment. There's not really a whole lot backing up any like significant and realistic resistance areas. At this point, this one is starting to fade away because again, there's not really a whole lot backing up now. I mean, if we would have hit it, we would have hit it already. Um, So it's just something that to keep an eye on. Even if we do go up higher, it's super realistic that we don't really go up 19 bucks, over 19 bucks, at least in the short term, until we break below $15.68. I do believe here it was super shallow, but I do believe right now we're in this environment where our supportive areas will be actually maxed out to the extreme. In my opinion, it's just like mostly swing trading. I'm very much focused on keeping keeping realistic views, right? And I have no problem with holding swing trades for as long as I need to until I have, you know, things, and I would say what they are and I will show you guys when I'm wrong. But as of right now, we're in support. We are in premium, not discounted support. We can still see short-term bullish fake outs. Again, this area not breaking over this area is super realistic. But the primary thing I want to say, and so stepping away from short-term trading is the best value for this swing trade. I said this yesterday, and I've said this many times before, but seeing the price break below 15.68, so ideally breaking even briefly into the 14. So I mean, anything below 16 is amazing. Anything below 14 would be even better. But that 15.50 to $15 to $15.50 is super attractive. It will allow the price to break below the point 0.5 retracement. It will be much more attractive with this stock. Any short-term fear in Bitcoin will be amplified in Mara, and then we'll let, of course, Mara start releasing their reports monthly and then quarterly reports on what they're earning, which is super bullish for the stock. And it also, in my opinion, supports my view of us holding overall higher lows as the price continues to attempt higher highs as well. So overall, I'm bullish on this stock overall. Like, I do believe it can go much higher. I do believe we can even see potentially $30 this year. But and this is well below 30 bucks. I believe this is very much possible. But what I'm trying to say is that regardless of me believing that this stock has a lot more upside to go this year, in the short term, it's no good reason to catch a falling knife. So it's like, if we're still holding a downtrend, we're seeing some short-term weakness in Bitcoin, more evidence that will go lower than not, and then evidence that the S&P is very much overbought and overvalued, at least right now in the short term. There's a whole lot of reasons to be patient with Mara. Even if it starts to pump again, we can easily hit resistance super quick, and then we can start seeing negative pressure build up on the stock again. So yeah, I'm just keeping an eye on 1430 to basically 1550. Lower prices expected before we go up higher. It's just super realistic. I would like to see this start popping out like crazy, but I'm no one to cause any kind of FOMO out there. I'm not anyone to influence anyone and what isn't realistic, in my opinion. And right now, it's just lower prices is definitely realistic, right? I want to see the 0.5 broken before I start becoming short-term bullish. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.